With the release of Blue Lock Chapter 308, we got the reveal of the major promise between BURATSUTA and Ego. In exchange for funding the Blue Lock project and Blue Lock TV, BURATSUTA was promised the selection of 3 Japanese players to join the Blue Lock Japan team for the U20 World Cup. Thanks to his motives of wanting to dethrone Ego and the offer for him doing so being placed on the table, BURATSUTA now has the ability to usurp Blue Lock for himself using the BURATSUTA 3 to do so. But throughout the series, who will be selected to be the BURATSUTA 3? Well, in today's video, I'll be going through and listing all the characters I believe are potential candidates for being selected as part of the BURATSUTA 3 and explaining why and how likely I believe they would be to become a member. Like always though, before I get into the video, I want to leave a spoiler warning for the latest chapter of the Blue Lock manga being chapter 308, and if you have not read it, I would suggest clicking off this video now if you wish to not be spoiled. Lastly, join my Discord server, it's called the New Egoist Geeks, and the link to it is down below. For starters, I think it should summarize who the BURATSUTA 3 even are. The BURATSUTA 3, also called the Special Trio, are 3 players selected by BURATSUTA to join the Blue Lock Japan team, bringing the total number of players to enter the World Cup to 26. These players made a deal with BURATSUTA which consists of 3 main conditions in order for them to be selected. First, they must complete a selection event that he has constructed. Second, they must forever be the property of BURATSUTA when it relates to the sport. From now until the end of time, he handles everything related to their careers. And third, once rejoining the Blue Lock Japan team, they must secretly make efforts to usurp Ego and remove him as the head of the Blue Lock project by displaying that his methods of training are actually wrong. This promise that he made with Ego highlights BURATSUTA's core values and desires of wanting to become the new head of Blue Lock, using specific players to do so. But now that we've got the basic summary out of the way, who exactly will be members of the BURATSUTA 3? Well, as of now, we only have one confirmed character, and that character is Sai Itoshi. At the end of chapter 308, Sai was promised a spot on the BURATSUTA 3 without being forced to pass the selection part of the process. But given Sai and how he has a manager for himself and likely would not accept a deal that forcibly tied him to Japanese soccer forever, he likely did not accept the deal with the other conditions. Sai was granted his spot after a conversation with BURATSUTA about their discussion on Sai's involvement in the U20 World Cup, being that he will only participate if Blue Lock can pass the group stage due to his desire to crush Spain, or more in particular, Bunny Iglesias. But as for why Sai was selected as a member of the BURATSUTA 3, it's pretty obvious. It's not because Sai hates Ego or because he wants to dethrone Blue Lock. It's simply because Sai is easily one of the best players in Japan and is easily the best U20 midfielder that we have ever seen. He was one of the core players on the Japan U20 representative team during their match against Blue Lock, and if we're being honest, it seriously took 14 of Blue Lock's best players to defeat Aiku, Sai, and Shido. So it's a pretty obvious pick to have Sai be one of his selected players for the backdoor route, as he calls it. But who else are other potential members for the BURATSUTA 3? Before I explain, I want to remind you guys that if you are enjoying this video so far, to leave me a like and subscribe down below to see more awesome Blue Lock content just like this. It costs you guys absolutely nothing, helps me out immensely, and this is the 5th upload I've had in a row on this channel, so if you guys are enjoying the content, you know what to do. And if you want to help me even more, if you were to become a member of the channel, you would earn some awesome benefits like personal video requests and shoutouts in videos, but you would also get your name mentioned in the Blue Lock New World movie as a contributor to the project, and this also applies to leaving super chats. So like, subscribe, and become a member today to show your support for me and my content. Now, another obvious pick for the BURATSUTA 3, since he was also given a central focus in the latest chapter, is Seishiro Nagi. But the main thing that may actually discard Nagi from a spot is the fact that he declined BURATSUTA's offer in this latest chapter. This comes from Nagi's faith and appreciation for Ego and Blue Lock, and despite Ego being rude to him prior to his locking off, he knows Ego wasn't wrong about what he said. He respects Ego and understands that without Ego, Blue Lock wouldn't be the place that he so desires to return to. And with BURATSUTA walking away from Nagi after his decline to the offer, it's left pretty clear that Nagi will not be joining the BURATSUTA 3. Or will he? I mean, we saw how desperate Nagi has become to return to Blue Lock, even camping outside the facility for days on end out of pure desire to return. And we also saw the anger that he felt when he was dismissed and told to leave. There is a possibility that Nagi gets taken over by anxiety and fear and actually accepts BURATSUTA's offer. However, the thing with Nagi is that he would probably secretly refuse to follow BURATSUTA's orders and conditions and would just play for the sake of playing. But I don't see this as being entirely possible though. Nagi talking all about how he can't betray Blue Lock just to turn around and betray Blue Lock just wouldn't make any sense to me. So despite popular opinion, I don't think Nagi will be returning through BURATSUTA. However, a pick that I think is easily secured is Kira Ryosuke. Now just hear me out, because I was never a fanboy of Kida or of the theory that Kida was going to return someday. Kida had a purpose in the first few chapters that I thought he fulfilled perfectly. He was one of the best on the team, but simply because he lacked the ego, he failed to survive and take that extra step. But because of the events of the latest chapter, Kida is actually a perfect candidate to return in the series. The main condition to BURATSUTA's selection process is to prove Ego wrong and remove him from the project. And based on Kida's personality and attitude towards Ego through the consistent interactions, he meets this condition perfectly. Kida was actually the first person to reject Ego's ideology, and even during the game of tag, he specifically said that he was only at BLUELOCK to prove Ego's ideology wrong. Based on how he was eliminated and the hatred he feels towards Ego and likely Isagi as well, accepting BURATSUTA's offer is actually the best way to get revenge on both players. I mean, he was offered a spot on the U18s at the beginning of the series, and given his title of the crowned jewel of Japanese soccer, I see no reason why BURATSUTA wouldn't present him the offer, and much less of a reason that Kida would not accept it. Do I want Kida back? No, not really. But if this is how he returns, do I consider it to be bad writing? No, I don't. But unlike Kida, a player who I think is actually perfect and yet has not gotten any recognition from the fans in relation to this topic, is Asahi Naraya. Now I'm sure you're probably saying right now, oh my god, you're so right, or oh my god, you're such an idiot. But looking at Naraya, he is actually a perfect candidate to at least receive the offer. Through his backstory, we know that Naraya's family is, in a Peabody and Sherman quote, exceedingly poor. With a family of like 6 with no parents due to a tragic accident, Naraya's dream of being a pro was supposed to save them from a life of poverty and stress. And thanks to Isagi's selection, Naraya was condemned to lose. But because of his family's situation, he is a perfect and ideal candidate. While he may not blame Ego or Isagi directly, the BLUELOCK project was essentially the cause of his dream dying, and in return, the continued poverty living of his family. So if BURATSUTA explained the conditions to Naraya in the same way that he did Nagi, I feel like Naraya would join for the sole purpose of saving his family, even at the cost of Ego and BLUELOCK as a whole. And it does make sense, because put yourself in his situation. If your family, especially your older sibling, was slaving away at multiple jobs just to help support your family and keep you off the streets, and you were offered the chance to join the national team of your country at the cost of one person's career, would you not do it? I mean, Naraya's conversation with Isagi during the second selection basically shows how much he's willing to put everything on the line, his future career and dream, and even the chance to save his family. So I believe that Naraya is honestly an ideal candidate for the BURATSUTA 3. Now, do I think he's going to survive whatever training or test or plan that BURATSUTA has for him? Probably not. His greatest ability is his off-the-ball movements, and with Isagi's emulation and elevation of the ability and the existence of Atoya, his playstyle is somewhat unneeded. Unless he just comes back like Hinigami from the wild card, then maybe, but I don't think he'll be drafted. The next character I want to talk about though is one of the most glazed characters in the entire series, and I just have no idea as to why. Let's talk about Hajime Nishioka. Now Nishioka is someone that you may call a sleeper pick, and for those of you who do, you're a fucking idiot. Hell, I'm sure the majority of you guys didn't even know his first name until I mentioned it just now. I see a lot of people speculating that Nishioka is going to be called back, given his reputation as Aomori's Messi, but I just can't see it. Excluding that title and that nickname, Nishioka has only been seen in the story on 3 separate occasions. We know that he was injured during the game against the World 5, he went to Manchan City during the NEL, and he ended the league with a value of 3 million yen, the same as Ikegiri. But that's legit all we know about him. We have never seen him play, and he has, as far as I can remember, never been seen on panel aside from his debut introduction. So out of any character, Nishioka is by far one of the worst mentioned in this video to be selected for the BURATSUTA 3. Hell, Ikegiri is a better pick for the BURATSUTA 3, but no, I do not want Ikegiri to come back this way. If this is how Kaneshiro brings Ikegiri back into the story, I will legitimately riot. Ikegiri, if you did not know, is the mangaka's favorite character, so if he uses BURATSUTA as a way to bring him back into the story, then I think we need to call this bullshit out. But another underrated pick who has actually never technically cameoed in the main story, let's talk about Ryo Nemioka. This guy was the opening opponent for Ryo and Nagi in the episode Nagi spin-off manga during their first ever soccer game, and as a matter of fact was the person that Anya was actually sent by Ego to scout, where she eventually discovered Nagi and Ryo. I think out of everyone, Ryo may be an unlikely pick, but I do think he has some incentive to return. He was the player knocked out during Team V's game of tag by Ryo and Nagi's combined efforts, and while we don't get to see his opinions or statements in regards to him being locked off, there is still the possibility that Ryo is selected by BURATSUTA. And this mostly comes from his hatred of Ryo and Nagi. Ryo and Nagi destroyed him during their mock match before BLUELOCK, and with Nagi and Ryo being the reason for him being eliminated, I could really see him wanting some payback. Even more so after Nagi's locking off was broadcasted on BLUELOCK TV. BURATSUTA could give Ryo the chance to get revenge on Ryo and BLUELOCK as a whole by having him join in on the project, and I think it's a definite possibility. Sure, he's one of the more unlikely characters and more forgettable characters, but I do think he has some potential. But a player who I believe actually has a bigger chance than most is Neru Teppei. Now I'm sure you're asking, why would Neru ever want to join BURATSUTA? He's just so wholesome, so why would he want to join that human fart box? Well, that's because of the conditions that were set for Neru by the NEL, and also his previous experience as a professional player before joining BLUELOCK. Let's start with talking about Neru before BLUELOCK. During the match against the BLUELOCK 11, Neru was a starting defensive player on the U20 national team, and if anything, he was really good. He managed to be the first player to defeat Yukimiya in a one-on-one, and I honestly think that he had a lot of potential as a defensive player in the series. But because he was a former starting player of the Japan U20 team before going to BLUELOCK, he was already technically under the management of BURATSUTA. This was shown through the BLUELOCK manager acting as the coach during the U20 game, who takes direct orders from BURATSUTA, but also the president's dialogue with Aiku essentially confirming their relationship. So if Neru were to accept this offer, it realistically wouldn't make any difference from his previous career as a professional player. I mean, does Neta really seem like the type of player who would leave Japan to represent another country at the club level like the other former U20 players? I don't think so. But assuming he was approached by BURATSUTA, it doesn't seem that unlikely that he would accept since his situation wouldn't be very different from his previous employment. But looking at the NEL, Neru was the only player on badminton who didn't play a single game or get a single NEL offer. I mean, even Igaguri and Nishioka got some playtime, but Neru, one of the former Japan U20 starting players, didn't? That seems a little weird to me considering Mensur and Birkenstock were so bad. BURATSUTA could approach Neta with an offer of the chance to return to Japanese soccer's national team, so long as he accepted the conditions prior to BLUELOCK, as they are essentially the same as his previous employment. And I think given the current roster of players, it does make some sense. Based on everything, we have a surplus of attacking players, but not a lot of playmaking midfielders or defensive players. And with Sai's return, he adds an additional player to that midfielder category. So bringing back a defensive player to kind of balance out the roster a little bit seems to make a lot of sense to me. But despite all the characters I've mentioned so far in this video, I do think we have the potential to get the introduction to a brand new character who we have just not seen before. And my reasoning for this is a little bit loose, but hear me out. Going off regulation, the World Cup typically requires 3 goalkeepers for a national team, and with Gagamaru and Fukaku, we only have 2 for the BLUELOCK Japan team. So technically, we would need another goalkeeper. You know what that means, guys? Gaemon's coming back, everybody, let's go! But in all seriousness, I think it could be very interesting to bring a new goalkeeper into the story. We know about the new Gen 11s participating in the U20 World Cup, and many have speculated on a new Gen 11 goalkeeper, which could be very interesting. But at the same time, I feel like adding a new goalkeeper to the BLUELOCK Japan team could be an interesting route to go down, but it's definitely one of the more unlikely possibilities. But with that, those were just my thoughts, predictions, and analysis on the BURATSUTA 3, and who could potentially use him to return in the story. I think out of everyone I listed in this video, I think Sai, Kida, and Neru are my 3 picks for who the BURATSUTA 3 are going to be. But honestly, every single character has a possibility. But anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. I just want to say thank you so much to all the members of my channel who help support me and my content. And if you wish to earn some awesome benefits like they do, and even get your name mentioned in the BLUELOCK New World movie, become a member yourself and help support me moving forward. And just a final reminder to join my Discord server if you're ever interested in getting any more involved with our amazing community. As for the question of the video, who do you think will become a part of the BURATSUTA 3? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all for watching, like and subscribe to see more awesome BLUELOCK content just like this.